Joyce, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic.
I am so excited for this conversation.
So am I. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here and be a part of the podcast.
Oh, thank you. I'm honored to have you. I know everyone in ToBeRe is going to be excited to hear what you have to share. And you're helping a lot of people. So let's begin with a little bit of gratitude for all the things you're doing right now.
Thank you, Keith. I'm excited. And that's my mission, to try and help people and share my story.
Awesome.
You know, we're all in this together.
So let's unpack your story and your mission here in the world. So I am joined with Joyce Laszloffy. Did I pronounce that correctly?
You did. Close enough.
Okay.
Let me tell you, the people at the at the supermarket are a lot worse.
Okay.
So I appreciate it.
Can you say it for me?
Laszloffy.
Laszloffy.
Yes.
I nailed it that time, right?
You did.
Okay,
You
good.
did great.
Awesome,
I'm impressed.
awesome. Well, I'm excited to have you here, as I mentioned, and you and I go back a little bit, you know?
We do.
I don't know when I first saw you. I think you reminded me that it was at a like a little school fair in the neighborhood, and I just recall, like, man, she is so kind. Your energy was amazing, and every time I've seen you over the years since then, your energy has been just full of loving kindness. So thank you for that.
Thank you for saying that. The feeling is mutual. I feel the same way. You radiate that same energy.
Thank
so
you.
like attracts like, right?
Yes, yes, yes. So we're gonna have a conversation about sugar.
Yes.
Okay. And when I see you, I just see the epitome of fitness. I mean, you just, ever since I've seen you, ever since I've known you, I'm like, she is giving her physical being some attention. And because you were kind, I knew that the spiritual being was also getting lots of attention. But you have a journey regarding sugar. So let's pick that up. So can you share with me, beginning from when you were a kid, like, what was your experience in your relationship with sugar?
Intense. And I didn't always look or feel this way.
Right.
You know, this is from somebody giving themselves a whole lot of love, bottom line, you know, and that's what it takes.
Yes.
To kick sugar and to choose to live a healthy lifestyle, you have to love yourself enough to want that for yourself. So it didn't always start that way. I would definitely say I was a sugar addict. I can say I'm a recovering sugar addict. Hi, I'm Joyce. I've been sugar-free for 4 years now. Actually, This past September, it marks 4 years for me. And that's huge.
That is huge.
I want little coins, you know, showing my sugar sobriety.
That's awesome.
And I never thought I could say that. I never thought, that voice in my head never would have thought this day would be here where I could say that I kicked sugar and that it doesn't have a hold over me anymore. As a young child, it goes back to my childhood. I can see the addiction starting. I mean, from a very young age, I was addicted to sugar. And it showed up in the way that my parents, we lived in rural Connecticut. You know, you're talking about the 70s where, you know, sugar and processed food wasn't huge and in all of the packaged food like there is today. You kind of had to seek it out a little bit. And I would beg my mother to go to the grocery store when she did her weekly shopping trips, because I craved sugar so much, and she didn't really bring it in the house.
Exactly, like it wasn't part of, you know, your family's lifestyle, right?
It wasn't. And so my mom would have the wheat bread, and I would want the Wonder White bread, you know. I mean, occasionally she would bake, you know, some cookies, or she would bake a cake for occasions. But I wanted that stuff like every week, every day. So I'd beg her to go to the grocery store. She'd let me go with her. And I was that kid that I'm sure all of you have seen in the grocery store, down on the floor, throwing a tantrum because they want this particular item. And for me, it was like Hawaiian Punch, you know, juice boxes when they came out. It was Fruit Loops. It was Apple Jacks. It was Twinkies, Hostess cupcakes. I begged for this stuff.
I mean, and you were in the grocery store relentless, like you
relentless. My sister, I have an older sister who actually, ironically, happens to be type 1 diabetic, who became that way at a young age, and she could care less about sugar when I was the one who wanted to go get the sugar. And so
you give your mom no break. You're not letting
break.
up.
She was so embarrassed and she didn't know what to do in the store. So she would break down, you know, after I'd be like having this tantrum and be like, okay, if you can make this box of Twinkies last a week, you know, like moderation, I'll get you the box. Yeah, of course, Mom, no problem. Run home, rip open that box, and, you know, by the end of the night, you know, sneak downstairs, keep having more and more. And by the end of the night, almost the entire box would be gone.
Come on.
And this continued in my life to show up. You know, I was the kid who wanted to go trick-or-treating, not with a little plastic pumpkin like
Right.
my son did, but I wanted, you know, the pillowcase, and I would fill it to the top, kid all the apartment complexes. I mean, it would be like a Santa bag
Right.
of candy. I'd run up to my room, I would like hoard the candy, I'd spread it out,
Are you
I'd take
counting it?
inventory. Yes, inventory, Keith.
So I call it counting. This is serious business. This is inventory.
This is inventory. And no one was allowed. I mean, that was like lock and key. That went in, you know, stash went in my closet and no one could have it. And I didn't share it with
there's
anyone.
No sharing. I was going to ask you, no sharing?
No sharing. None, you know. It's like my poor parents, like, could I have that Reese's peanut butter cup? No, you know.
Right.
So I ate that whole bag, usually like pillowcase, within like 3 days. It was gone. I was on sugar highs. All of my holidays, you know, revolve around sugar, whether it was Hanukkah or Christmas, you know, or Valentine's Day. It's like I had to have like candy in the house. I remember for Christmas, I would beg my mom, like, could I decorate the house, you know, for the holidays? And that revolved around having like a tray of like after 8 mints and mixed
Right.
nuts and chocolate Hershey Kisses. Of course, no one came to our
I
house,
remember
you
you
know.
saying that. I remember
Right.
you saying that. Like, no one
We
came to
had no
visit.
visitors, and I just sat on the coffee table, and I would, you know, continually need to go to CVS and replenish the
So you
stash.
restock it.
Totally. It's like, where is it all going? Me, I'm eating
So
it.
were you aware of that at that age that you were doing this?
No. I
Okay.
mean, I did not know at any time that there was a problem. I don't even think my parents really
Right.
realized it. As I got older, and maybe there was more, then you're talking about in the 80s, when maybe there might have been a little bit more information about sugar, my mom, you know, would be like, wow, you're eating a lot of candy bars. You know, it's like we'd go on a cruise and I was frequenting the gift shop, you know, like
Right.
3 times a day, just wanting the Three Musketeer bars. Wherever our trips were, it's like she was just always seeing me go to these gift shops buying the sugar. And I could tell that it was starting to affect her. But, you know, she was preaching to someone who was an addict. So
Right,
it's just
right.
like, leave me alone. What teenager wants to hear their parents
Right.
saying anything? It's like, I'm not going to die. I live forever.
Right.
It's not going to affect me. But it did. And when I really started seeing the difference, like, wow, was, you know, when I had our son, who's now 14 years old, Owen, when he was about 5 years old, it's like I would take him trick-or-treating all the way up to 5, and he'd have the little plastic pumpkin.
Right.
And he would care less about Halloween.
Yes.
It was always me, you know, like, let's get the costume, let's go out trick-or-treating. This is the fun, festive night. It's surrounding about like candy. How can you deprive your child of it? How can you deprive yourself of
Right.
it? We'd get home, I'd be like, oh, and let's lay out your candy on the floor, you know? I mean, it was a pathetic
Right.
little pile of
Right.
candy.
And no one's like, why? Like, I'm
Right.
over this.
Right, you know, he was young, he could even care less. And I just like, I would take his candy, I'd put it in the pantry, and after I noticed I was eating it, like, you know, after 3 days, I'd have to dump the rest of it. He'd come ask me, hey mom, can I have, you know, some candy? I'm like, oh, mommy ate it all. And it was so embarrassing. That's when it was through seeing that he didn't have that addiction
Yes.
like I did.
Mhm.
There was nothing chemically that was, you know, and because I wasn't feeding it to him nonstop, you
Right.
know.
He never developed
He
it.
never developed it. And so that's when I started seeing, wow, something's off. I mean, not to mention really seeing prior to that, my whole emotional, you know,
Right.
side.
You know, can I say something regarding
Yes.
Owen? It could be a situation too, to where, you know, like you said, he never wanted it, he never developed it.
Yes.
And even though you might have been trying to push it on him, he was like, okay, I'll have a couple pieces, now I'm
Right.
done with it. And I think some parents, because they're either nostalgic about their experience with sugar
You said it.
and Halloween, they try to create it for their children.
Yes.
And you're not even really aware
Correct.
that there could be any health risks to it. So so tell me about how it showed up for you mentally and emotionally.
Yeah, so it really, I mean, it was around the emotional side my entire life, even as a child,
Yes.
because I mean, those tantrums on the floor are related to sugar, you know.
Okay, so from an emotional standpoint, I'm sorry to cut you off.
Yeah.
Did it become something to where you started to relate to holidays and events regarding if sugar was involved?
Yes.
So Christmas was over, you start thinking about, oh man, Valentine's Day is coming up, and that's the next big sugar
Right.
thing. And then there is, you know, people celebrate Easter, so that's coming up.
Yes.
And it just became this the next thing, like and so it started pulling you.
Totally. My life revolved around holidays. It revolved, if it wasn't even just sugar directly, because remember, as you know,
Yes.
sugar is in all foods, right?
Yes.
So it could just be like, oh, I want pancakes for breakfast,
Right,
you
right.
know? Wasn't thinking I was eating a cupcake, you know,
Right.
or cake or cookies.
Or donuts.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, it's like I was always obsessed with food.
Right.
You know, food that white processed, you
Yes.
know, that turns into sugar in our
Exactly.
bodies, you know, those simple carbohydrates.
Mm.
So it showed up for me those ways. It constantly, like as a child, the mental aspect is that hyperactivity. That is how the sugar played
Right.
out in my life. You know, I always had was very volatile and, you know, like quick and screaming and shouting and throwing a tantrum a lot. People telling me to calm down, Joyce,
This is
relax.
this is surprising to me because I don't, you know, because I haven't seen that side of you. But
It was.
There's a few people back there that will that would say, "Hey, I
Yeah,
know that Joyce."
that was her, totally. And when I wrote the course, I even reached out to my old high school friends. So now we're moving up to high school era, and they were like, "Oh yeah, Joyce, you were always obsessed with sugar. You know, you had to get sugar. It's like we're going out for, you know, a drive somewhere. It's like, can I stop at, you know, the Circle K, the 7-Eleven, and pick something up?" It's like I had to have it, you know.
Everybody was aware
Right.
of this with you, right?
Right,
Like
yeah.
you just on this train. You don't even know
It
you
was
on it.
boys and sugar as a teenager. Those two addictions, and so it showed up. And stomach issues was another thing that my friends, you know, reminded me that I had as a child.
Like your stomach was always hurting.
Always hurting, yeah, you know. And so like I knew nothing, and the sugar didn't help that, you know.
No.
It made it worse. So I was unaware of, you know, two main things. What I also realized is, two were related: the sugar, the emotional aspect, and then the stomach issues
Yes.
as a child. What happened is though, like because I had those stomach issues that might not have been completely related to sugar,
Right.
okay, but other diet issues like gluten and other food intolerances, it brought on, you know, the state of stress
Yes.
for me emotionally because I didn't feel well and I wanted comfort.
Right.
And my mom, here she is healthy. It's like, Mom, I don't feel good. Could you get me a pack of M&Ms?
Right.
You know, so she would, you know, she'd
Yeah.
feel bad for me. So on top of giving me Pepto-Bismol drink and Tums to chew down, you know, or a little hot water bottle for my tummy, it's like they gave me, you know, sugar that only aggravated the
Yes.
situation more, but I wanted it because I wanted to be soothed. And
Yes.
so many of us turn to food for
Absolutely.
our physical comfort
Right.
also, which
Yes.
was a big trigger for why I turned to the sugar and it throughout my whole life was
Yes.
for physical discomfort.
Right.
Because I made that connection that sugar did that.
When did you make that connection?
That was probably not until around 2005 when I really started seeing, I read like my first book that opened up for me the idea that sugar was a real addiction to even begin with, and that there was something chemically going on with my body.
Right.
Of course, I read this and it gave me a little solace, and it's like, okay, it's not me.
Right.
There's something real here scientifically, but it wasn't enough, and I wasn't ready,
Right,
you know,
yeah.
to make those changes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, going back to when you were a kid and you were talking about sugar and how it affected you emotionally, I remember as a kid, and that's when I got an adult and I was around friends who had children, that they would say, hey, no sugar for this for them while they're with you because, well, they didn't have to worry about that with me because that wasn't happening. But they say no sugar for them while they're with you because when we get them back, they're going to be a terror.
Right.
And so after you got that sugar high, did you change? And then when you were coming down emotionally, was there a difference too?
Oh, definitely. Like when I wasn't on the sugar, yeah. I mean, I was just so much calmer. It's funny that you say that about your, you know, experience or like parents saying that to their kids,
Right.
because you know, like because Owen never wanted sugar, also. I didn't give it to him in mass amounts. You know, it's like I saw my own addiction and
Yes.
problem. I didn't want to create that for him as well. And he just never wanted it, even if I tried to push it on him.
Right.
As horrible as that sounds, being a
Right.
mother trying to push that on him, it's like I did at times. You know,
Yes.
it's like I'd stuff his Christmas stocking with candy, and he'd be the most unhappy kid to get candy in his stocking.
Right.
Like, it just made no sense to me.
Right.
You know, I was vicariously trying to live through him. You know, it's like, well, if I can't really eat it, you know, let me give it to him.
Right.
Which sounds, it's so horrible.
Somebody's got to enjoy it.
I mean, that's an addict, you know,
Yes.
speaking, just that, the sickness of even that, you know, to think that happened.
Right.
But I remember when he was younger, his aunt took him out, who, you know, was like pushing sugar and candy on him. And he was around 3 years old at the time. And she gave him cotton candy, which I'd never given him.
Right.
And they went to the movies, and then she bought him more, you know, junk food and candy. He came home that night and he threw up, like all over his bed, like he didn't make it to the bathroom. And he felt horrible. I mean, he got sick off of sugar because it was just so much toxicity inside of his body, you know. And he was like, I'll never have cotton candy again.
Yeah, he's like, that's it for me.
He's done, yeah.
Wow. So, you know, fast forwarding a little bit, did you mentioned in your course that you experienced depression as well as anxiety. How did that show up for you? What were some of the dark places that took you, and how did it impact your relationships?
Yeah. Well, I've been happily married for 20 years. Yes. To a great guy who
Luke.
put up for those dark. Yes. Yep. Shout out to Luke. To someone who has been in those dark places. And how those dark places would really show up for me was that voice in our head that we all hear, that we all have, that sometimes are just so ashamed and embarrassed to even admit, like the things that we say to ourselves, you know, in our deepest, darkest hours. And I mean, I would say these words out loud as well as constantly replaying, you know, that script in my head. And it would be even emphasizing even more, looking in the mirror, you know?
Like, what's an example of something you say?
It's so embarrassing to say, but it was stuff like, you know, like, gosh, well, it started with, okay, I'm gonna eat good today. The voices really started when I started learning, when I was turning 40, about health and nutrition.
Yes.
So then it was like, you know what, I know better. I know now the difference. I've educated myself and have become aware that this is a real addiction and what foods I shouldn't and shouldn't be eating. Right? But I still had the addiction to deal with. Just because you know, then how do you deal with it?
Exactly.
So that's when like it really got dark for me, because I had awareness onto my darkness.
Exactly.
Right?
Like, yeah, but before, like, I
you
didn't
could
know.
just be miserable, but you know, you don't know that you're miserable down in the gutters.
You're not responsible.
Right.
Now you're responsible.
Now you're responsible. So if you don't address that and take care of it and overcome that addiction, you beat yourself up even more in that way. So because now you know why. So that voice would show up in the morning after. I'd be like, okay, I'm gonna eat really good today, and I'd eat really good, and I'd eat healthy, and I'd have my vegetables, I'd have my protein, didn't have any sugar. And then come 3 o'clock was like always that time at 3 o'clock where I just was stressed out. I was beat up at the end of the day. I was tired. You know, I'm raising a young child. It's like I'm doing all my house stuff. I'm trying to work. Where I was just tired of taking care of everybody, me. And I was like, you know what? I deserve this. It's like I just need a little something to get me through.
Just a little.
Right. I have a couple more hours till the end of the day. I gotta do something. And the cravings would start. And I couldn't stop those crazy cravings. And so I would turn to sugar. And of course, you know, you say, oh, I'll just have one cookie. And it's never just one cookie. It was more and more and more. And by, you know, so I would just go off the rails. And it's like I could consume, you know, like 2 days worth of calories, you know, in the end of the last 2 hours of the day, you know, just binge. And then I would beat myself up in the morning. You know, that's when that voice would start. That's when the real darkness was, where I would say to myself, I'm gonna tell you now.
Yes.
I would say stuff like, you know, I can't believe you just did that, you stupid F, you know, like you're nothing, like you just don't even have the discipline to do this for yourself. You know, it's like, how could you fat fuck, you're never gonna get, you know, healthy and fit. You know what to do. Like what, you don't have the self-discipline to stop yourself? Like if you can't do this, you can't do anything in life, Joyce. You know, it's like, look at you, look at the fat on you. And it just constantly beat myself up. You know, then you start looking and picking at every other part of your body. And just saying like, that doesn't look good and that doesn't look good. Or, you know, it's like, you're just worthless. You're not gonna be able to do anything. You see your friends doing stuff and you're not gonna be able to make anything of yourself.
The comparison just starts.
Yes.
Everything.
Comparison, thief of joy, right? Horrible.
Comparison. I love it. Say that again.
Comparison is the thief of joy. That's a
Love-
quote. I didn't say it.
But
Theodore Roosevelt.
I love it. Comparison is the thief of joy.
It
And
does.
so,
It robs your joy.
So that next morning, the ego would wake up and it was never asleep, but the ego would come in full force. Guilt, blame, and shame, just
Yes.
all three.
So
the
bad.
trifecta.
Right, and then what are you supposed to do like that when you're broken down?
Yes.
Right? You start to believe it, first of all. At some point, you just believe it.
Right.
And you just can't take it anymore. And so you don't believe, that you really have the willpower and that you're really worthy enough or that you're good enough to
Right.
make a change. And you eat the rest of the day also, then bad again. And then it's just this repetitive cycle. And then you finally get some little motivation in yourself to be like, okay, I'm going to do it now.
Right.
And you do it. And maybe you make 2 days in a row, but then you just fall off again and you go back. And it's this constant yo-yoing
Right.
up and down, which isn't healthy. Even
No.
if you're eating healthy during the day, you're
No.
eating like crap, the rest of the day.
And I want to talk a little bit about that too, because I hear people talk about cheat days and things like that. I'm not a big, proponent of cheat days, at least for me. Like what people do,
I'm so glad you say
that's their
that.
journey. But anyone who knows me is like I'm consistent the same throughout, no matter where we are, what we're doing. So as a fitness competitor, and I know a lot of people who, look at what great shape you're in phenomenal shape, by the way.
Thanks. 49 years old. We're the
both-
same
we're
age.
same age.
I'm looking forward to that 50.
Looking forward to it. And so being around, people that are highly motivated, disciplined, and committed to that level of wellness, that physical wellness in their lives, one thing that I've heard a lot of them say is that, a cheat day is good for you or something like that. Can you kind of speak to that a little bit for
Sure.
you? Like, did you
Sure.
subscribe to that?
Yeah, I did.
And was that, what was the impact of that?
Yeah, so I was. So when I discovered the whole health world
Yes.
and really what eating healthy looks like as a fitness competitor, because that's what started my real journey, I would say, to really buckle down and do something when I was 40, so about 9 years ago, was that I learned how to eat healthy, but I still was eating sugar.
Right.
So it wasn't that healthy. And that sugar was allowed on those cheat days.
Right.
So, I'd eat healthy throughout the week. And then come, Saturday, I'd be waiting and jonesing all week long. Like, I'm doing this for that.
Right. Yeah.
That's the goal in mind.
Right.
Which right there's the broken mindset.
Exactly.
Right? Because that shouldn't be the goal in mind.
No. Your optimal health
Correct.
is more than enough.
Correct, right? So there's just that instant gratification showing up.
Waiting for you.
Right. Instead of like it should be the long term.
Yes.
Which is right, going to 50, going to 60, going to 70.
Yes.
And you and I are still doing push-ups and feeling great and healthy.
Killing it.
Right?
Killing
it. Like those YouTubers who see these videos. Like, I want that to be me.
No doubt.
Without a doubt. So yeah, and then it would spiral, so I would go for that cheat meal. And first of all, it continually reinforced that mindset,
Right.
which was huge, because that's the key to breaking an addiction.
Yes.
So I wasn't breaking the addiction, and I was only reinforcing these already bad habits,
Right.
but masking it as if it was healthy through the fitness, lifestyle, through doing the competitions and doing this diet, where then I was having a cheat day.
Yes.
Because like I talk about in my course, any diet that has the word cheat in it is a red flag. There's you shouldn't have to cheat when you're healthy. I mean, just think of that like in your relationship in life. Like
Right.
if you had your partner, your husband, and your wife or
Right.
spouse.
You're
It's
gonna
like
step out once a week.
right. It's
Step out
like
once a week.
that's just not a healthy relationship to
Right.
have that cheat day.
Right.
Maybe for some, but not for me.
Right.
And so that was key. So there is no, in my course, it's not about a diet. It's
Right.
not meal plans. It's instinctual eating. It's
Yes.
teaching people to get in touch with that. It's dealing with the actual addiction
Yes.
that I'm teaching people to get over that mindset.
Love it.
Not just the physical, because that's very real in
Right.
addiction, this
Absolutely.
addiction or any addiction.
No doubt.
But that's a small percentage. And so many people don't even realize that's the easy one. That's the one they get scared and hung up on is
Right.
that physical. But that can be overcome. And they do it. They do it when like they're doing it for a holiday. It's like,
A wedding.
Lent, right? It's like, right. Or getting ready for a wedding. It's like
Yes.
whatever your determination is, whatever it is that you want bad enough, that becomes easy for you.
Yes.
You give it up and you kick it. So it's like you can physically actually kick
Yes.
this addiction, like so many. So where the hard part is and where people fall off is that mindset that we're doing it to get to that goal, to get to this short little quick fix, end point. And then, or that or they think that they want it for a long term, but they're not dealing with the underlying real issues of why they even went to the sugar. And so for me, those underlying issues showed up. I mean, there were two main reasons why I went and gravitated to the sugar.
Oh, do share.
So the first was the physical that I talk about even as a child. Like if I have a stomach, like if my stomach's upset or I'm just tired, exhausted, achy, I don't feel good, I want food to comfort me because that's how I've been conditioned by my parents, by myself, by society.
Right.
That's what media puts out there. It's like, do you see the pictures? You see the commercials?
Absolutely.
It's like you don't feel good, you comfort somebody, right? By bringing them over like fresh baked, bread, banana bread, something, a muffin.
Exactly.
It's like something to just lift you up and make you feel good. You fell, you hurt yourself. Here, let me give you, a cookie.
Yes.
So that's one reason why I turned to food or sugar and why I have. And the second reason was, which really boils down to so many people, and you can just sum it up in one little phrase that Louise Hay, amazing woman in the self-help, right? Love Louise.
Love Louise Hay.
She says everything boils down to one thing. I'm not good enough. Hay House, right?
Yep.
So
I'm not good enough.
I'm not good enough.
Exactly.
And that's what it boiled down to for me was I'm not good enough. From that third grade teacher telling me that I was dumb and couldn't continue on to just feeling my own insecurities.
Yes.
And then the sugar compiles on that. When you start talking to yourself that way, then you believe it and you think I'm not good enough because you're not given the opportunity to even accomplish those goals.
Right.
But now that the sugar is gone, I mean, it's just freaky to think like that jailer in my head is gone. Just boom, disappeared like that.
Doesn't that feel like amazing?
I do.
I was talking to a friend about something because my struggle was completely different. My struggle was in relationships and having integrity there. And I was telling my friend this a while back that once I made this, the choice, like the conscious choice, it was gone. I was like, how did it even have a hold of me in the beginning?
Correct.
Like, it was just so clear.
Yes.
It's like, it's over. Like that urge, that addiction is gone. Like,
yes.
It's just gone. Because I was so clear and able to distinguish what the cause was.
Right.
And once I was able to distinguish the cause, it just changed everything. So once you realize that, hey, I'm good enough. I don't need compliments or to feel, myself or to feel that I am all that I need to be.
Was that your cause too then?
Yeah, my cause was it can boil down to exactly what you
Just
said.
based
I
on,
wasn't
I'm
good
not
at,
good enough.
I wasn't good enough, and so I was seeking it outside of myself or
Right.
outside of my relationship. And the same thing with sugar. So same exact thing. So there is one thing that we had a conversation about, a story that I want you to share about. Because I think a lot of people will be able to relate to this.
Oh boy.
And what that story is that once you competed for quite a while. You were super accomplished in that endeavor, and you were having a bite to eat with a friend at True Foods. And can you share that whole experience? And this was before you were sugar free, obviously. But can you share that whole experience?
Well, confession time. It was more than one time.
Okay.
It was many dates. Yes,
Okay.
girlfriend dates.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. And this is a fellow fitness competitor.
Yes, in that particular story, but it's been so many different people.
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
but if you can share this one, because I think it's symbolic for a lot of people. To where there's this one version of themselves that they show up, and then there's this shadow side, and the shadow side which they don't acknowledge and they try to hide from other people, and so that's the one that that you really have to be also aware of and be also loving to and everything else. So can you share that experience?
Okay. Yes, so I was out to dinner, like I had many times before, this time with an actual fitness competitor, someone that, I'd done competitions with before. So we were just going to reunite. That's one of the great things about competitions is just the form of community, because like you and I talked about, that's what I loved the most about it was, right? It was just that girl gang and that connection and that bond, of something similar, like-mindedness. And so I was living, you look at me and you think I'm living a healthy, clean lifestyle. I'm certainly not going to tell her across, the table that I'm jonesing for sugar because we're both talking about how, oh, we're still, eating really good off of the plan. I mean, it's hard, now that we're not doing the competition. There was that struggle, but and what I'm eating, I had tofu, I had my steamed broccoli.
Right.
I'm trying to I'm not being inauthentic. Like, I'm not lying to her. Like, this is how I eat, and that's how I really want to eat. Right. But I hadn't cut the sugar out yet, so it's still physically controlling me.
Right.
And I'm still craving and wanting it. And I was just listening to her, and it was like this.
Right. She's just talking.
She's talking, and I didn't even hear her because all I'm seeing is like, where should I go after this? What should I get? It's
what I get to get.
Right. And then I'd be like, stop, just be in the moment. You just had a great meal. You're full, you're fine. It's like you have to talk to yourself, and it's just so exhausting, to constantly be that way. And you're always going to lose when you have the conversation with the voice in it, right?
And you're not aware of it.
Yeah, you can't have that conversation, which is what I teach in the course too. That has to stop because you will lose every time with that voice. Yeah.
Because it wears you down like you did your mom.
It does, exactly. Yes. Exactly.
It wears you down. It's like for every answer you have for it, it's got a better answer.
Yes. Oh my God, totally. I mean, it is so wise and conniving.
Oh, it's great.
It's
good.
It wrote the playbook.
Exactly.
It knows it. So, we end our conversation and I leave, and it was great seeing her. Of course, there's also that comparison. It's like, which has helped beating myself down. It's like, wow, she's looking better than me. It's like after it's been weeks now, and I don't, like just that dreaded comparison of how I want to look better like her, she just looks good.
Yeah.
And putting myself down, thinking, or I liked her shirt better than mine, it's
like,
her hair looks great today. I just must look like a frump now.
And you just can't celebrate and just say, she looks great. And leave it there.
I look great too.
Exactly.
Right?
And leave it there.
Why compare?
Exactly.
But I'll tell you just quickly, that voice, that comparing is gone now that the sugar's gone too. I love myself for me. And I don't need to compare, and I'm happy, and I don't have to be perfect.
What a relief
I'm
that
perfectly imperfect.
What a relief that is.
It's a huge relief.
I know.
Yeah.
I mean, I see people suffering all the time, and I'll tell some of my friends, I'm like, wow. Like, people are like, how do you have time to do this or that?
Yeah.
Because I'm not spending my time suffering. I got loads of time. of time.
Yeah, you're right, Keith. Like, I didn't, I forget that right now in the moment, that how much time we waste, with those thoughts.
The chatter.
Yes.
It is obsessive.
That's what stops us from doing,
totally.
Achieving all of our goals and dreams.
People are like, man, like, I see you hardly ever look tired. You're not exhausted. One, I have healthy practices, but more than that, what's draining more than anything that I could do in the day, any task that I have to do, any new project, is that nonstop voice in the head.
Yes.
Like, when I was able to quiet that, I was like, I feel great.
Which is one of the healthy practices. I know that you preach also. You shared a great morning ritual that you do.
Yes.
That I adopted now because of you too. So thank you.
Tim passed it on to me, so I'll pass it on.
Yes, I hope you shared that with your audience because it is powerful.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
So
okay, so back to the story.
Yeah. So you're leaving her.
I'm leaving her.
Comparison is jumping off.
Yep. And I end up, getting closer to the intersection right down the road from this location where there's a Safeway, and I'm picturing, okay, I'm just going to go in and get this bag of chocolate chip cookies that I've been jonesing for now for the last 2 hours, right? And I'm pulling, to the intersection. I'm like, no, don't get it. No, you're just going to drive by, It's like, no, that goes on and off. It's like, just go straight, just go straight. And I turn into the parking lot, sit in the car, go in, don't go in, get into the store, get up to the aisle where the cookie bag is that I've been dreaming about, and there I am. And it's like, and I grab the cookie bag, and instantly, the relief just even sets in right then.
See, that's when it's more than just physical.
Yeah.
It's because you haven't even...
I haven't even eaten it yet. It hasn't even chemically started the addiction with the dopamine, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So that just shows you, and I discussed that in the course also, so you really have a better understanding of the physical and the mental side of addiction and what's going on.
Exactly.
And when you can see that, it can make it so much more easier to overcome it.
Right.
So I grabbed the bag, paid for it, went into the car, telling myself the whole way there, just 2 cookies, just 2, all right, maybe 3. Okay, 4, maybe 4. No, 1, just 1, and then I'll throw the bag out. Sit there, I'm eating in the parking lot, in the dark parking lot.
Right.
It's like 8 o'clock now.
Right.
My husband and son are at home.
Hiding out.
Right, thinking I'm still at the restaurant. I'm eating my cookies, and I end up, leaving 1 or 2 cookies in the bag. I'm like, oh, I can't take this home. It's like, 1, it's embarrassing that I even have the bag. 2, that there's only 2 cookies left in the bag.
Right.
I'm not going to explain this. So I walk back out of my car, go to the front of the supermarket, and dump it in the trash can. And drive the shameful drive home.
Right.
And you only know what the conversation looked like in the morning. We laugh about it, but it's so sad.
It is. It's very sad.
And I'm
really
not
is.
alone.
No, you're
I've
not.
talked to countless women who have had this experience.
I've had a similar experience. It just wasn't.
You have?
It wasn't related
Okay.
to sugar.
Okay.
But I've had that shameful drive home when I did something that was out of integrity.
Yes.
That wasn't in keeping with being aligned with my values and my best self. And I know that shameful ride well.
Yeah, that, you said it, because that's what it is. Because for me, even in the height of, where I'm still eating the sugar, and you might look at me and be like, you look great, Joyce, who cares? Have a little sugar, it's not gonna hurt you. Well, 1, it still does hurt you, because there's still internal stuff that's going on.
And as you said, although the mirror or the scale may not see it, your organs know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But it's the integrity. Like, what the biggest thing for me is integrity with my word. Because
Yes.
I do believe that is like what I hold more sacred than anything else. Is our word.
Yes.
Is honesty. In my relationship with my husband, with my child, with my family and friends.
Yes.
It's like, because that there's nothing that's above that, I feel.
Right.
And who is the most important person? Yourself. I do it with everyone else. I would never lie to my husband.
Right.
I would never. Although I guess I just got caught there. I omitted. I didn't tell him about the cookie.
Right.
Although he knew.
Right.
And I have fessed up many times. But it's the integrity with myself. And if you don't, you might do it with other people, but if you don't do it with yourself, it's the word. It's just keeping the word. When I say to myself, I'm gonna wake up and go to the gym in the morning, and I do it, it wasn't because, if I did or didn't have that workout, it mattered. It was that I stuck to the plan.
You did what you said you were going to do.
Yeah, and that makes me feel like a badass. That makes me feel so powerful.
I know, right?
Like I could do anything. Like, you know what? I am going to be a big CEO. I am going to be, this. I am going to help people.
Exactly.
I can do this. I can run a marathon. I could do whatever I want. All because I went to the gym today? Yeah.
Yeah. Because you kept your word.
Because you kept your word.
Yeah, one of the things that I often tell people is that the days that you don't want to do it are the most important days.
Yes.
And so it's the days where the chatter is saying to me, hey, don't go to the gym or don't do this, but I do because I said I would. That's such a victory for me that day.
Right.
And it just continues to reinforce, and that becomes your new normal.
Correct.
And keeping promises to myself is one of my normals. Speaking of that, in developing that confidence that becomes like a snowball effect, when I became vegetarian back in 2004, I remember I was in a relationship at the time, and she was kind of upset about it, right? She was supportive in a lot of ways, but she's like, what does this mean for me?
Right.
Like I have to cook for you. I'm like, no, you don't. We're gonna change restaurants. No, we don't. I'll figure out something to eat.
Right.
And I just can't, but I remember doing that, and I told myself I'm gonna try for 2 weeks, and the things that I cared most about back then were, will I lose any strength? Will my body not be as lean? Because I had believed
So clearly that's not true.
Thank you. I had believed in all the myths that people had told me and passed them on as truths.
Wow.
That if you become vegetarian, you're going to be like this little flower in the wind, and like a harsh wind is going to come and just blow you away. Because they stereotype people that were vegetarian to where it's like, oh man, they're not healthy. Like they look sickly.
Right.
And fortunately, I knew one person who was like a really healthy person, and he happened to be vegetarian. Now that's not to say that all people who are vegetarians are healthy, because we know that's not true.
Correct.
There's vegetarians who don't eat meat or dairy, but they're loading up on cookies and cakes and potato chips and popcorn
That
or
was
whatever.
me at some point.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
and then when I became vegan earlier this year, what made all that possible in sticking with it, and again, I have to say that I don't have an addiction to sugar, but what made it possible was I just really wanted to have an incredible, impeccable relationship with my word. and when I overcame the lack of integrity in my relationships, because that was, I guess, a good. It was similar to people who struggle with sugar.
Right.
It was for me. It was practicing fidelity in my relationships. What helped me is one day I was like, I'm keeping my word. And like I made that promise many times before,
Right.
but I just knew that I had really analyzed what the cause was. I really got to I wasn't looking for another step.
Right.
Like a lot of people like, you know what? I figured it out. I figured it out, and I know what it is. It's because I don't meal prep, and I hate to cook. And here's what I say. Like, you don't know this, but this conversation that you're telling me, this new discovery that you just figured out that's in the way of you, you had that with me last year. You told me the same thing last year.
Oh, I've heard
you
that
know what
too.
it is? I just go out so much but now you've used that reason before too. It's not about that.
Right.
It's really getting down to the cause of I'm not good enough.
Yes.
And being able to make that connection, as you said. So what was it? What is the significance of you becoming vegetarian, and how did that help you become sugar-free?
Yeah, great question. So I've been vegetarian, tricky word, vegetarian,
Right.
definitely vegetarian for 27 years, back in 1992. I think I'm doing the math right. And in that time frame, on and off, I was vegan for 4 years. So I say now, if we're going to get technical with labels, I'm not a vegetarian anymore. I'm a pescatarian.
Okay, well, fish, yes.
Because I'll occasionally and very occasionally have some salmon.
Right.
And even that, like I'm so not with labels anymore,
Right.
because I'm probably gonna kick that,
Yeah.
pretty soon too. I'm just going off of that instinct again.
Exactly.
I'm just not feeling
Right.
it. I started for my vegetarian reasons, for ethical reasons back then. In my course, I talk about being vegetarian. I'm not telling you have to become vegetarian to kick sugar, but what I am teaching in the course is, that it's about a plant-based diet,
Right.
and it should be predominantly plant-based, which any really diet you read nowadays is talking
Absolutely.
that. Even a paleo with all this meat, they're talking about eat your plants and veggies. Like that is what's important.
Exactly. And the research from the medical community is bearing all that out.
Yes, exactly. And we just don't eat enough
Right.
plants, right? And what we think is like a serving size is just ridiculous.
It's gigantic.
Right. People are lost by it too. You order, a vegetarian burger and you get like a little side salad, or whatever it is, the side salad on the plate, and it's like 3 little pieces of, spring mix.
Right.
Or iceberg lettuce.
Right.
Whereas, when you buy like that package of spinach, in the store, I would eat that entire package.
Right.
I'll either saute it or just eat it,
Yes.
out of the bowl with
Right.
with not even dressing. It's delicious.
Yes.
It's so good. That's a serving.
Right.
And it's really not a lot. We've just been conditioned and manipulated to think like nobody even knows what a serving looks like.
Right.
But how it affected me was really when I had my big epiphany and revelation for becoming, to kick the sugar. It was 4 years ago. I was in like my lowest point. The stress on the relationship, just, he was so tired, Luke. He's been, a saint with the ups and downs and the emotional side of the sugar and the manic, depressiveness,
Yes.
how it always showed up, the high anxiety and, just major depression, days where I just couldn't get out of bed because I was just so feeling helpless and hopeless to
Right.
life.
Right.
Feeling like, what's the purpose? Particularly when my life was great,
Exactly.
when I wasn't 300 pounds and, morbidly obese, when I did have a great family and support system, when I had a great son,
Yes.
when I had an amazing husband, I didn't have financial woes. So why I beat myself up more? Why am I,
Why? I don't have
Right.
a right to feel this way.
Right. I literally have thoughts like I just want to die. I would tell Luke all the time, like, I just feel like there's no point to life.
Right.
There's no purpose. I'm just, I just want to die. Like it wouldn't mean anything if I died tomorrow. I wouldn't
Right.
care. So it was one of those lows where I was journaling, and I'm an avid journaler.
Yes.
I have for years. I have like stacks and stacks of journals. And I talk about that in the course, and journaling is a big part of doing
Yes.
the work.
Yes.
You got to do the work to
Gotta
get
do
to
the work.
the addiction.
Gotta do the work.
Right. That I was saying to myself, like you can't do it, Joyce. I'm writing to myself. You can't, do this. You've tried quitting, 1,000 times. And every time, you go right back to the sugar. So why is this time going to be any different? And it's like, you just don't have the willpower. There was that nasty ego voice. And then a voice appeared on the paper that reassuring, that person that's that alter ego, that true authentic self that's
Yes.
inside of me, that we all have in us, that's buried deep down, that's
Exactly.
important to bring out, that comes out with the work, that voice, said to me, you know what, stop saying this, stop believing the lie. You do have the power.
Yes.
You have done it before.
Exactly.
It's like, it's not that you can't do it, you just haven't chosen to do it, Joyce.
Right.
Because you did it 27 years ago when you chose to become vegetarian. When I chose to become vegetarian, I just made that choice. I simply said to myself, it's like, after I heard about the atrocities from my older sister, Tracy, and she told me about, what goes on in the meat industry, I was like, that's it. I'm never eating meat again. And I have never, to this day, had a stitch of meat because of that.
Right.
It's like, I was like, no, I'm done. I made a choice and a decision that day. And when people would come to me, when it didn't matter what restaurant I was at,
Right.
it's like, I could be with whatever boyfriend, or when I met my husband 20
Right.
years ago, he's like, well, I'm not vegetarian. Is that going to cause a problem? It's like, no, this is my
Exactly.
choice, my decision. I'm not going to be cooking it for you, and it's not going to be in the house, but go ahead if that's what you want to do.
Right.
You have to make your own choice for yourself. So it was very easy to say no to somebody, because it wasn't that I couldn't eat meat. It wasn't that I can't eat meat. I don't eat meat.
Right.
It's that
I
simple.
love it.
And there's a big difference there. So that's discussed in the course too. The power of our language, right? And the power of our words, because that relates to our mindset, because that's how we talk to ourselves. So all of that is so crucial. And it seems so simple, which is why I say it's simple to kick sugar.
Right.
It is. I mean, there's a whole structure and a foundation to get yourself to that point. It's not just by saying, okay, I'm not going to say I don't eat sugar today. You have to build on that,
Right.
which is what I teach in the course.
Exactly.
But it's getting to that simple, very easy one step. I
Right.
don't eat sugar, just like I don't eat meat. So that really helped me. And yeah, like you were discovering with, can you still build muscle
Right.
being on a highly plant-based diet?
Right.
The answer is yes.
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 Big
I mean,
time.
right? Let's see our
Yeah,
muscles
that's
there.
right.
That's all
Love
plant-based
it.
power,
Love it.
baby. I know how many push-ups I can do. How many can you do? And
I love it.
I mean, it's a myth, and everyone's busted that myth now,
Yes.
as you see. I mean, you go log in, what vegetarian vegans are out there,
Right.
and there's just thousands upon thousands of famous people that you probably don't even know
Right.
are vegetarian or vegan.
I love it.
Yeah, so.
Man, that's awesome. So I just want to ask you a few more questions.
Sure.
And I think this would be, I think would be useful to a lot of people for them to make the connection. And like I said, for me, I just see food as fuel. When I left the South, I went to the Marine Corps for 4 years, and that 4 years, they don't really try to please your palate.
I know.
And as a result, I was away from it long enough to where I never developed it. The sugar craving or the food addiction, it was like taken away from me. And which was actually a gift. I remember
Yes.
complaining about it before, about how horrible the food was. But once I started becoming more health conscious and more fitness conscious, it was really a gift. And that's how I see it today. So what a lot of people will say is I don't have a sugar problem because I don't eat ice cream, I don't eat cookies, I don't eat this, but sugar is in everything. So can you speak a little bit about that, and can you give us an example of how much sugar is in things that we don't know? And what's interesting? The food industry has been made to start to list more information regarding the nutrition facts.
Yes.
But after a while, people become numb to that,
Right.
and but it's like you said, your organs don't lie.
Right.
So can you share a little bit, give an example of sugar
Yes.
and foods we wouldn't think of?
Yeah, I mean, there's over 74%, 80% actually, other statistics will say, of the food, the processed food that's on our supermarket shelves, that are laden, that are full of sugar, and we don't even realize it.
Right.
And the food industry and the beverage industry purposely, manipulates our food. I mean, they have food engineers,
Oh, yeah.
okay? Not a chef, right?
Right,
An engineer,
engineer.
scientists.
Oh, no, they're good.
food scientists. That's
Right.
just freaky.
Right.
Because your food is actually made in a laboratory.
Yes.
And they're purposely sitting there calculating and manipulating the food to the taste, the sensation, the way it crunches and sounds to your ear.
Right.
Is that going to create more of, you know, a dopamine. You want to hear that crunch, crunch again,
right.
you know, and it's like they calculate it that way for you to become an addict. I mean, I don't know about you, but that outrages me. Like, I'm outraged, and like, I'm like, screw you. I'm not buying your food just for that reason alone.
Right.
You know, I'm not going to be your puppet. I'm not going to follow that, and I'm not going to give you my money. These big corporations that are doing this, making us sick.
Right.
You know, and killing us. So the sugar is in there, and it might not say sugar the way, you know, it just used to be one simple ingredient, you know, table sugar. But now we've got like over 61 different names of sugar, and that gets confusing to the consumer, and they're purposely doing that.
Right.
Because as you know, with the food labels, you know, like the first two ingredients, people might hear that and know like it's done on weight. So the first two names on that ingredient list is going to be the bulk of what's in that product. So if you saw sugar as 1 or 2, you'd be like, wow, that's a lot of sugar. I'm going to stay away from it. Of course, you should be able to read on the label too, and people should know how to read these food labels and become educated to turn it around and shop that way.
Exactly.
If you're going to shop in the middle of the grocery store, you better be reading those labels.
Exactly.
Otherwise, your health is at mercy.
Exactly.
And so reading those labels, the sugar, they'll break up knowing that the sugar could be number 1.
Right.
They will break it up into like 4 or 5 different ingredients, names you don't even know.
But they're all
you
sugar.
know? But they're all sugar, and so you're thinking, wow, sugar's down in the middle. It's down at the bottom. There's hardly any sugar in here.
Exactly.
But put all those together, and it's number 1 or number 2.
Yeah.
You know, so that's crucial. And people, I mean, there are restaurants now that are starting to notice, or you go to your favorite coffee bar and you'll see up on the menu there, whether people are reading or not, it'll show you the calories. But which that alone is alarming. You know, when you've got a drink that's 1,100 calories or 700 calories, that's practically your entire caloric intake for the day. Yeah. And people aren't registering that. And not because they're stupid and dumb or they don't care. It's like they just really are uneducated. We don't teach this in school.
Right. You know, yeah, and if you're educated and you know, like, man, but you know, you're overwhelmed by, but it tastes so good.
Right, you know.
But then all I'm hearing from people is like, I'm so fat, I look disgusting, like, let me put a shirt on, or you know, I can't wear this or whatever.
Correct.
And like that's the voice that is as soon as you've taken that last sip or that last bite, that voice is trailing it.
Yes, and it's just constantly creating and feeding that addiction to where then you feel bad, so then you need more. You feel bad because you physically feel bad because you've instigated all of those chemicals and tapped into the dopamine receptors, creating more dopamine receptors that are actually creating the physical addiction. You're lowering your serotonin levels when you put sugar into your body, so you're feeling much more depressed and lethargic and sad about yourself. You're lowering your beta endorphins, which are your, you know, feel good and your the hormone that makes you feel good about your self-esteem.
Yes.
So when you have low beta endorphins, you've got like your self-esteem is in the dumps.
Exactly.
And it's like sugar does that. It brings it down.
And then at that point, you're like, what's the use?
Right.
Let's have more.
It messes with your ghrelin. It messes with your leptin hormones that regulate your sleep, that regulate your hunger. Ghrelin is the hunger hormone.
Yes.
Just like it says. So sugar is totally messing with all of those hormones and chemicals in our brain and our body. So it is a reaction to that. And yes, I did bring a little little thing for you to show and share today, just to show people, because we're in right now pumpkin season,
right?
And we're in fall, and people all I see on social media, Halloween. That won't be me anymore. My son's not deprived; he's quite happy. He told me at 5, no more trick or treating.
Right. And you were heartbroken.
I was so heartbroken, He's
gonna miss out on his childhood. But he survived his childhood.
He did. He's happy. That was his choice.
Right.
Yeah, his total choice. So thank goodness for him showing me the way.
Well, yeah, we're in Halloween and we're in pumpkin season.
Right, and you see it on social media. Everybody getting their pumpkin drinks, or you see Starbucks, you see Dunkin', Dunkin' Donuts talking about, get your pumpkin drink, your pumpkin latte,
that's right.
whatever
And
it is, your cappuccino.
There's been some mad scientist in some European lab just getting the right pumpkin spice together for you.
Yes. So this blew my mind. Here I am, educated and know about how much sugar is in everything, and I'm blown away. I'm sorry, I can't get over the fact that I was doing some research to get ready for a tabling event and putting together to show people how much sugar is in some of these drinks that we drink every day, whether it's sport drinks to apple juice that we give our kids, to orange juice, to Red Bull, to Gatorade, you know, that all the kids and adults are drinking, which that's for an elite athlete, you know, like you have to be running a marathon to deserve a Gatorade.
And I feel pretty good, but
you still wouldn't. You're an elite athlete, and you
deserve a Gatorade.
No, exactly. Be running 3 days straight in some ultra marathon, and then you can have your like a glucose shot if you need it, you know, to keep you going. But nobody, you know, playing in the soccer field, you know, our kids for, you know, 45 minutes to an hour does not constitute them gulping down Gatorade, which is what happens.
No doubt.
So so down here I brought, you know, we all see this Dunkin' Donuts. I keep wanting to say Dunkin' Hines. They're probably from the same company. Dunkin' Donuts, which I don't know who's ever purchased this size before. This is the 32 ounce.
Right.
It's their large. And right now, if you want to hold that, Keith, I'll grab also. This right here is the amount of sugar that is in this drink.
Wow.
And this drink that I'm talking about is the pumpkin swirl frozen coffee with cream, 32 ounce. So there was 183 grams of sugar in this one drink. So they're not going to tell you that on the food menu. I mean, this did come straight off the Dunkin' Donuts website, so this is their facts, you know, and everything. But that's 45 3/4 teaspoon. Now it's crazy. The World Health Organization recommends do not exceed 25 grams of sugar a day. That's exceed, like that's the upper limit.
That's
so that's 6 teaspoons. This has 45 3/4 teaspoons and 183 grams versus 25 in excess. And this is why we're all dying. This is why there's more than 100 million Americans that have diabetes or pre-diabetes. I mean, that's 40% of our population. And the sad thing is that like 7.2 million of those people don't even know they have diabetes. Like they're not checking their glucose, they're not going to the doctor, they're not stepping on a scale, they're not really becoming aware to see that they're killing themselves.
Exactly.
You know, it's like, it might be out there and pushed on you, and I agree, we're being brainwashed, but nobody's putting that spoon in our mouth except ourselves.
Absolutely.
And so we need to take responsibility for that. I mean, that blows my mind. This is like just a little less than a tablespoon of a whole cup of sugar in one drink. And how do you want to make a bet that the same person who's buying this pumpkin swirl frozen coffee with cream is also picking up a donut? And then it's setting them in a massive sugar. I mean, you might as well just tap into your vein, and it's like you're giving yourself heroin and cocaine, right?
Exactly.
Like in there, like what it's doing to you physically and mentally, to your brain, to destruction, to all of it, is then you are just craving and wanting more. I mean, it's not your fault that you can't stop eating after you've had this much sugar.
Exactly. And it may not be this again. It could be bread or it could be something else, but the overeating just taps into it.
Correct.
And I think, you know, a lot of parents, this is important too, because they make a lot of choices. Like I hear parents say, but they won't eat anything else. And like, if that's all that's in the house,
correct,
eventually that's all they'll eat. And you know, you wouldn't let your kid go out, and if it was some kind of drug or heroin in the house, like, you wouldn't let them do that.
Correct.
You don't bring that in the home, so don't bring this in either.
Right.
But it's really a choice. Well, Joyce, man, I just feel so fortunate to have had this conversation with you. I wish the people that are going to see this were here in the studio with us to just feel your energy, be inspired by you. And you're coming to talk to a bunch of our friends here in a couple of weeks, and I can't wait. And there's going to be some tabling too. There's going to be a lot more education for them to see, and stuff. I'm so excited. Do you have one thing you'd like to share with them? For example, you mentioned a course throughout the podcast here. So if people want information, like where can they go and get it? I mean, but not just information, but here's how to do it. Some help, right? If you're struggling, you know, with any of these issues, whether it's mental or physical health problems, complications, you're on a bunch of medications, there is help. I mean, that's the first thing that I think Keith and I both are trying to say, is that you're not alone. Right. We've all been there. I mean, that's crucial to know that. I mean, I have a community of women and men who just are just like you, so that you're not alone, and that there is help, and there is, you know, I mean, there's lots of different ways out there. My course is one of so many different
books, amazing books. What I try to do is condense, all that scientific, jargon to make it relatable with my own story, and then share with you how I actually overcame it from a real live sugar addict, recovered sugar addict now, what steps I did to finally break and beat this addiction. So the course, you could go to ikicksugar.com, real simple, ikicksugar.com.
Nice.
And also I do have, because we're talking about food labels, because you had mentioned it's switching over and that there's new food labels. There is new food labeling that's taking place. Thank goodness. This is good news from the FDA. Finally, something good they're doing.
Yes.
However, smaller companies, they're giving them leeway time to switch over their labeling. So they have from 2020 to 2021. So it could be a little confusing right now because you'll see it on some packaged products and not on others, or one day you'll pick up your favorite thing and it's switched on you. One of the biggest things they're doing is divulging on the sugar label the added sugars, which is crucial because it used to just say sugars, and there's a difference, and I talk about this in the course, between naturally occurring sugars and added sugars.
Yes.
So that's really crucial. But what I'm going to offer, to people just to get started and start that awareness process is I have a free sugar sleuth, because you got to be a sugar sleuth nowadays,
Absolutely.
right? And read all those labels, be a detective. Toolkit that you can go ahead and get for free, and I offer to anybody. So just simply text the word sugar, that's simple enough, sugar, to the number 33777. Again, that's 33777. Text the word sugar. You'll be prompted to then go ahead and get your free sugar toolkit. Or you can go visit and read more about my story and me on the website, ikicksugar.com, and I'm also on Instagram and Facebook, ikicksugar.
Beautiful. Joyce, thank you so much.
Thanks, Keith. This was awesome. Love you, man.
I love
Thank
you too. Thank you so much.